Nebraska's Matt Rhule just pulled off the biggest flip of the recruiting season in quarterback Dylan Raiola. How'd he do it? And what does it mean moving forward? Locked On Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman. Thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We always appreciate that. You know that. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's podcast, Georgia commit, five-star quarterback Dylan Raiola flips to Nebraska. Unbelievable. That will pay immediate dividends for Matt Rhule and the Huskers. Who else is flipping, by the way? We'll talk about that and the needs and the recruits at the other schools in the Big Ten, and we'll close it out with Tuesday tweets. That's always fun. Hang around to the end for that as well. Be sure to subscribe and follow Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcast. That way you get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. Well, Dylan Raiola, he's going to start right away at Nebraska, in my opinion. He's better than anything they have on the roster right now. And the sooner he gets his freshman learning curve out of the way, I think the better. And the sooner that the Huskers can start winning some games and end their bolus skid that they've had there. But Matt Rhule is going to have to make some serious changes to his offense entirely, as a matter of fact. I'll explain that in just a minute. Wednesday is National Signing Day for the early signing period for high school seniors who formalize which school they'll play for. Many of you know it's a pretty big deal. And some kids have verbally committed to schools already before officially signing the dotted line this week. But nothing's a done deal until it's a done deal, and when the kid actually signs. As you know, recruiting is a cutthroat business. Coaches are always trying to steal kids from other schools, right? It's called flipping. You know, a kid commits somewhere verbally, but until signing day arrives, other coaches are calling, trying to get them to come over to their school. It's called a flip. And you want to get a committed kid from one school to your school. Well, it has happened, and it has happened with maybe the most prolific quarterback out there in high school football going to college football. And that is five-star quarterback Dylan Raiola, as he announced on Monday that he is flipping from the mighty Georgia Bulldogs to Matt Rhule's Nebraska Cornhuskers. And he made that announcement 2 days ahead of signing day as well. Got all the drama out of the way. This entire recruiting discussion that we are about to have right here on Locked On Big Ten is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. So how did we get here? Because this is a big part of this story, very important part of the story. Georgia got Dylan Raiola to verbally commit earlier when Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs were in the midst of back-to-back national championships. I mean, they were the glory team of college football. What quarterback wouldn't want to go there if you were the first choice of that school? A lot actually would like to go there. And of course, these teams, they over-recruit in some positions as well. You know, and many talented players eventually move on, seeking more playing time. Just an example, you know, Joe Burrow, he went to Ohio State, couldn't get on the field, goes to LSU, goes undefeated with Ed Orgeron, wins a national championship. Now, that's not exactly apples to apples because Joe Burrow actually went to Ohio State. We're talking today about a kid out of high school that changed his mind at the last second as to where he is going. But the philosophy applies nonetheless. Some of these kids, you know, they'll make change their mind before they ever set foot on campus. And it's basically what happened here. Raiola seemed destined to go to Georgia. If you don't know the story, his family moved from Arizona to Beaufort, Georgia, so they could be closer to Georgia when it became time to go play for the Bulldogs. So with that in place, how did Matt Rhule and the Nebraska Cornhuskers get involved in this story? It's pretty interesting, actually. But after all, you got to remember the Huskers, they haven't been great lately. and they failed to get a bowl bid this year. And also, Matt Rhule, by the way, runs a quarterback run first, pass second option offense. That's not what Raiola is. He's a pocket passer. Okay. So that's interesting in and of itself. This season, Matt Rhule bounced around between three different quarterbacks with Jeff Sims, Heinrich Haarberg, and of course, Chubba Purdy, and they all had minimal success. In fact, all three quarterbacks were turnover machines throughout the season. And that was the number one reason that a 5-win Husker team didn't get enough wins to become bowl eligible. By the way, quick good story about Jeff Sims. He just got his degree this week, and he's the first generation of his family to get a degree. So congratulations to him. In fact, we'll have a picture of him in his cap and gown later on our Tuesday tweets because I thought it was a good moment. But back to the Huskers quarterback situation here. In a postseason press conference a couple of weeks ago, Matt Rhule was talking to the media, and he seemed to really lower the expectations, or at least try to lower the expectations of Huskers fans for landing a big transfer quarterback in the portal. He said, look, man, it's going to cost between $1 and $2 million of name, image, and likeness money to get anybody decent in the portal at quarterback. And okay, so fine. I guess we're just going to develop quarterbacks that we recruit out of high school at Nebraska, and that's the end of it. But then, just as mysteriously as he got off the podium almost, he started talking to Ohio State quarterback Kyle McCord. And there was talk about McCord, who's obviously, he said he wasn't coming back to Ohio State, starts talking to Nebraska. And we thought that was weird because McCord's a pocket passer, and a pretty good one, I think. But he's not the type of quarterback that the Nebraska system uses. So it was weird. And then there were a lot of reports that this was a done deal, that this was happening. Kyle McCord to Nebraska. Then Dylan Raiola, the rumors of him start surfacing that he is interested in going to Nebraska and flipping to Nebraska. And just like that, McCord disappeared and he ended up at Syracuse, which again, very weird to end up from Ohio State to talking to Nebraska to signing with Syracuse. We wish him well. It's just a bizarre choice and a bizarre story. And it really doesn't add up, I think. But this also, if you listen to this podcast on Locked On Big Ten, the minute that happened, the minute McCord said, well, I'm not going to Nebraska, we discussed that right here. We speculated loudly that Raiola was probably going to flip and come to Nebraska. And of course, it has come true. So that's the case. So why would Raiola spurn Georgia, one of the best teams in all of college football, and go to Nebraska? Well, it turns out family has everything to do with it. On Monday, he said he believes Nebraska is in his blood, and he's right. His uncle Donovan is the offensive line coach, and his dad, Dominic, was one of the greatest centers of all time at Nebraska and played 14 years for the Detroit Lions in the NFL. Plus, if he goes to Nebraska, he'd probably be able to play right away. Now, we don't know if that would have been the case at Georgia. We learned on Monday that Georgia starter Carson Beck has announced he will not be going to the NFL. He'll be coming back and playing for Georgia for another year. Probably the right choice. I don't know how ready he was for the NFL, but he was 12-1. So he announced he's coming back. Plus, they have a redshirt freshman there, Gunnar Stockton, as his backup. Now, Stockton was highly recruited, a dual threat quarterback, and he's been waiting in the wings for his chance to shine after Carson Beck. So maybe that would have been a lot of competition to crack through to get into the starting lineup for a young kid coming out of high school. Meanwhile, let's talk a little bit more about Dylan and his decision. This isn't the first time that he has changed his mind. In May of 2022, he actually committed to play at Ohio State. But in December of last year, he reopened his recruitment, changed his mind, said in January, he said he was interested now in 4 schools: Georgia, Nebraska, which was always part of the mix, Oregon, and USC. By May, he announced, all right, it's going to be Georgia. All right. And now that he's decided to go to Nebraska, he will, by the way, be the highest rated recruit to pick Nebraska since such stats began. We kept track of these stats and started in 2006. So this is a great get from Matt Rhule and the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And just finished his first year coaching the Huskers, and he lands a quarterback like this. You got Raiola says he wants to restore Nebraska to its former glory. He's got his family ties there. Matt Rhule really seems to have a good thing culturally going there. The players really seem to gravitate and like him, and the fans seem to like him. And this is a fantastic victory for Matt Rhule, who, again, just finished his first season. Now he's going to have to revamp the Huskers offense, and I'm sure he'll be glad to, but Raiola is a pocket passer. His senior year at Buford, he threw 34 touchdowns and just 1 interception. By the way, by comparison, the 3 Husker quarterbacks threw 16 interceptions this season. So Raiola is not a running quarterback like Nebraska is used to. In fact, he rushed for a negative 56 yards this past year at high school. And those were negative numbers due largely to sacks and whatnot. But nevertheless, he's not a running quarterback at all. But more good news for the Huskers, because Raiola has decided that he is going to he's in the position where he can join campus early. And he'll be on campus next month, January. He's going to enroll early, and that means he'll hit the ground running with spring football and be ready to go. So we're on the eve of signing day, but Matt Rhule already has his first win of 2024 for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I know you Husker fans are very excited about it. I'd love to hear from you. Love to hear from all of you. As a matter of fact, you can hit us up on Twitter at X at TalkBig10 with the number 10. Also our website, talkbig10number10.com, and on YouTube as well. All right, a lot of focus on Nebraska, as we should have. There are other schools of the Big Ten. It is a big week for everybody. We're going to touch on a lot of those in just 1 minute right here on Locked On Big Ten. Passion, drive, and patience. Coaches need it. Players need it. Fans need it. It's also what brings the winning trophy home for your ride or die alive, keeping it alive. eBay Motors has everything that you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED lights, everything you can possibly want for your ride. If you're into speed, power, style, eBay Motors has you covered on absolutely everything. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. And with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. That's ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. I want to thank everybody who's checking us out right now, especially you everydayers out there. Thank you very much here on Locked On Big Ten. Meanwhile, if you haven't, be sure to subscribe. I think we've picked up, thanks to you guys, like 700 extra subscribers this month alone. Thank you for that. That is incredible to me. You can subscribe right now. It's free, and you're in the Big Ten Club. All right. And you can also share, follow, or like Locked On Big Ten, no matter how you get your podcast. Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. All right. So let's get into this a little bit more. This is a fun week. The Ohio State Buckeyes have at least 3 5-stars lined up. And let's start with quarterback. The best quarterback name of the entire class, Air Noland. First name is Air Noland. That is a fantastic name for a quarterback. Noland, by the way, has stated and restated on social media, with everything going on, that he's all in on Ohio State. I don't think Ohio State has to worry about this kid being flipped anywhere else. He says Ryan Day's track record with quarterbacks is incredible. He wants to be a part of that. He is all in. By the way, here's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping for a future Ohio State versus Georgia game down the road that will feature quarterbacks Air Noland versus Gunnar Stockton. I love the names. Those are great names for quarterbacks. Air versus Gunnar. It's incredible. Great names, great quarterbacks, great schools. Get the TV promos ready, because that's happening. I absolutely love it. The Buckeyes, they just keep adding great players at wide receiver every year. I mean, that is a pipeline of wide receivers, right? Keep an eye on Jeremiah Smith, though. He's the number one wide receiver prospect in the country, and he gave his verbal commit to Ohio State a year ago, but teams have been nipping at his heels and calling him up and blowing him up and want to steal him ever since. And, Ryan Day is going to do everything he can to keep this guy from flipping elsewhere. And it's hard to argue with offensive coordinator Brian Hartline's past history and success with wide receivers as well. So we'll see if Jeremiah Smith keeps to his commitment and goes to Ohio State. There's also defensive end Edric Houston, and they need to close him because they just lost Justin Scott to Miami a couple of days ago. So as far as the Michigan Wolverines are concerned, a little surprised. They don't have a list of 5 stars coming in, as a matter of fact. Just solid trench players. It's the most Jim Harbaugh thing. That's how he builds his teams, from the trenches out. He's got 5 offensive linemen coming in. They all come in at the same age. They're considered the best offensive line group in the entire country. That's what they have now. And they just keep reloading for the future and keep it going. And so more of the same up front for the Wolverines. James Franklin at Penn State. They got a couple of nice linebackers, and Anthony Spica and Kerry Jackson. They're coming on their way. And of course, with new defensive coordinator Tom Allen, he'll love modeling these two. And in my opinion, James Franklin should be taking a page out of Ohio State's recruiting book, start getting some wide receivers and get some speed downfield. But Tom Allen will have a great time coaching these young kids, and they'll love him right back. He's definitely a player's coach. Keep an eye on 4-star quarterback Andrew Dennis out of Mount Pleasant, Michigan. He was all set to go to Michigan State until Mel Tucker got fired. Dennis decided on Brett Bielema and the Fighting Illini for now, but the word is a lot of teams are pushing hard to flip him as well. Desmond Smith is another 4-star player to watch from Clarkston, Michigan. He said originally he was going to go to Boston College, but then he decided Southern Cal. But Jonathan Smith may try to talk him to coming back to his home state, not go to the West Coast and play at Michigan State. By the way, Smith is doing a great job at Michigan State since he has been hired. In fact, I think we're going to look at this because I think he's got like 9 commits so far. He may land some more. And that includes 4-star wide receiver Nicholas Marsh, who they're going to hang on to. We're going to take a closer look at Smith and his recruiting job and his portal job at Michigan State, I think, later on this week here on Locked On Big Ten. So look out for that, Spartans fan. Also, keep an eye on 4-star safety Coy Perch, who committed to PJ Fleck and Minnesota last spring. But now Minnesota's doubling down just to keep him because Florida State and Ohio State are trying to flip him before Wednesday as well. So look out for Coy Perch and see if he does end up at Minnesota. And Minnesota's got a great history with they've always had good defenses there. So I think they can continue to get some good recruits there. So we'll have all the latest news and opinion with what happens on Wednesday with signing day right here on Locked On Big Ten. Now, I have a piece of portal news I want to share with you from Southern California. And keep in mind, we got to start thinking of Southern Cal and UCLA and Oregon and Washington as Big Ten schools now, because all these kids we're talking about today in the portal or that get recruited, they're going to be playing in the Big Ten starting this year, 2024. So I thought I'd throw this out at you. So we've got some interesting news at quarterback. And as you know, the Trojans have been pretty solid at quarterback with former Heisman winner Caleb Williams, who might be the top pick in the NFL draft, certainly the top 2, top 3. He's going to go pretty high in the draft in April, but his heir apparent is leaving USC as well, just when he's going to be the guy. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Something else is up there, but Malachi Nelson, he's a former 5-star recruit quarterback. And he's been tied with Lincoln Riley all the way back to the Oklahoma days. Riley was recruiting him at Oklahoma, and then Riley took the Southern Cal job, and he flipped his own recruit to go from Oklahoma to Southern Cal. So it's pretty interesting. And Nelson's a Southern California native as well. So I don't, maybe he wants to get out of there. I don't know. Behind Williams, he only threw 3 passes, 0 passing yardage. Hasn't been used yet. But again, he was patient. He did his dues. He's the next guy up. He's ready to go right now. So I don't know why he's leaving right now. Plus, Riley's got a pretty solid penchant to develop quarterbacks, doesn't he? 3 of his last 4 quarterbacks have won Heisman trophies. Williams has won, Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, and the other guy he had that didn't get a Heisman, Jalen Hurts, is all pro in the NFL. So I don't know why, if you were a quarterback, you wouldn't want to stick with Riley out there, Lincoln Riley. I'm not sure. But again, maybe he just wants to get out of Southern California. I'm not sure. But this move now leaves Southern Cal with sophomore Miller Moss as the only scholarship quarterback to play in their bowl game, the Holiday Bowl, on December 27th. And believe me, Southern Cal is not unique in that situation, with guys leaving, either opting out to get ready for the NFL or opting out because they're in the transfer portal. There are a lot of schools with second and third string players that are going to be thrust into starting positions just to play their bowl games. So keep an eye on that scenario as well, and keep an eye on that name as well, Malachi Nelson. We'll see what happens with him. If you are checking out this podcast, which came out on Tuesday morning, if you want to check out Tuesday night, we got some Big Ten basketball coming up. Morehead State is at Indiana to take on the Hoosiers at 6:30 on the Big Ten Network. Of course, the Hoosiers were that close against number 2 Kansas in Bloomington this past weekend, but couldn't close the door on them. Florida is taking on Michigan in the Jumpman Invitational at 7 o'clock on ESPN, and Nichols is at Maryland at 8:30 on the Big Ten Network for men's basketball. Also, we've told you about this. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. It's called Locked On Sports Today, and it's here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with all the local experts of Locked On, plus your national shows covering every single league. And as I keep telling you, this show is on there from time to time as well. So go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe there as well. After you subscribe to Locked On Big Ten, feel free to subscribe to them as well, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, we always like to have some fun with Tuesday tweets. You can always follow me on Twitter at Talk Big Ten. I'm always on there. And if you have something on there, I always save them for this segment. And then we pick out the best of the best and try and put them out there for you on Tuesday tweets. We will do all of that in 1 minute right here on Locked On Big Ten. All right, let's do this. It is time for Tuesday tweets. And a lot of interesting ones you guys I had out there, and we'll put them here full screen. If you're listening on audio only, we'll try to describe them in detail as best as we can on here. So let's put them up here, go full screen. And the first one out of the box is from @RyRizzy. He appears to be a Penn State fan. He says it's about Drew Aller. It's got Drew Aller and some of his stats, 23 touchdowns and 1 interception this past year. And Drew Aller took a lot of heat this year because he seemed to regress a little bit. And Penn State made a change in season with offensive coordinator. And this is a very talented kid. Keep in mind, he was very young, but I wouldn't give up on him just yet. I think he's still pretty good. We spent a lot of time talking about him here this season, but this post with his picture says Aller struggled against Ohio State and Michigan, but people saying he isn't good is comical. With Kyle McCord gone to Syracuse and J.J. McCarthy potentially declaring for the NFL, find me a better remaining Big Ten quarterback with these stats. That's right. Drew Aller probably going to be the best quarterback in the Big Ten starting out next year, especially if J.J. McCarthy leaves Michigan for the NFL. Here is one from @UMGoBlog. It's from Michigan Post. It's a picture of Jim Harbaugh on the sideline with his defensive unit. Or I believe this is a picture from the Minnesota game after a turnover. It says Jim Harbaugh will be just the 12th person to play in and be a head coach in the Rose Bowl game. So, yeah, that's true. All right, let's see what else we have here. Oh, this is from @Swanky Wolverine. We post a lot of his stuff. It's pretty good. It's a scene from The Office, decked up in Michigan gear. Only 14 days until Michigan football plays in the college football playoff. And you can never go wrong with any kind of tweets, social media, or pictures that involves the TV show The Office. Here is @Iowa Awesome, and it is a picture of Sam Laporta, former Iowa Hawkeye tight end, now a member of the Detroit Lions, who is just killing it in his rookie year. It's got the top 4 tight ends in the NFL. The first one is Travis Kelce from Kansas City. Now, we all know he didn't go to Iowa. He went to Cincinnati. He leads the way with 85 catches, 924 yards, and 5 touchdowns. At least leads the way in yardage. Now, the rest are all Iowa guys. The second tight end, TJ Hawkinson, at the Minnesota Vikings, former Hawkeye, former Lion, actually. They got rid of him so they could draft Sam Laporta. 91 catches, 902 yards, and 5 touchdowns. There's George Kittle of the 49ers, who are rolling right now with 55 catches, 865 yards, and 6 touchdowns. And then there's Sam Laporta from Detroit, 71 catches, 758 yards, and 9 touchdowns already this season. And it says Iowa tight ends have been killing it all year. Hashtag TEU, that stands for Tight End University, the Iowa Hawkeyes. No question there. All right, here is a picture from at Blair Sanderson, and it's a video of Iowa punter commit Rice Dakin. All right, this is video. If you go download this and play it, he is just booming these punts. And, of course, you know, they love their punters there at Iowa. Torrey Taylor, of course, is moving on to the NFL, and he was the best punter in the Big Ten by a long shot. Looks like they got another one of the pipeline there for the Hawkeyes, so good for them. Here's another picture of Sam Laporta on his 3-touchdown game. It says last night was Saturday night against Denver from at Big Ten Football. Proud of the alum, and also includes a subtweet of Greg Rosenthal, who says Laporta is absolutely ridiculous, a rookie tight end in the mix for All-Pro alongside Kittle and Kelsey. All-Pro, the best at your position in the NFL, and he absolutely is. Here's from at Penn State Rivals. It's a picture of Tom Allen, former Indiana head coach Tom Allen, expected to be named the new Penn State defensive coordinator. And we did mention that. And that's going to happen. So that was just a tweet from a couple of days ago. Like I said, the kids will love playing for him, and he'll love coaching them up over there. Here is from at Mr. Ohio. He says, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but no Florida State, Clemson, or North Carolina on the schedule. You know what schedule this is? This is the Syracuse schedule. This is Kyle McCord's schedule. Says put a good team around them, and they could find their way into the playoff conversation next year. They have Miami on the schedule. Every other game, maybe even Miami, but they're all winnable. Who knows? Kyle McCord may go 11-1 again, just like he did at Ohio State. This time he'll do it at Syracuse, but Syracuse, a lesser school, the lesser ACC. Are we going to be having this conversation again next year? Oh, look who got left out of the 12-team playoff instead of the 14 playoff. I can see it happening. You heard it here first. All right, here's that picture of Jeff Sims. And this is from Jeff Sims' Twitter feed, the former Nebraska quarterback in the cap and gown. A very proud moment. Says, went through so much to get here. It's all kind of surreal to me. I thank the Lord every day for getting me to this point and for the blessings ahead of me in this next chapter. Thank you, Nebraska. I am officially a first-gen college graduate. Isaiah 41:10 and hashtag Husker for life. How about that? Congratulations, Jeff. Way to go. And let's see here. Here's one from at Penn State Recruit Talk, Penn State Media, begging you for this question. All right. So when Tom Allen is introduced as the defensive coordinator at Penn State, somebody asked him, be honest, coach, was Penix short, right? 2020, Michael Penix Jr., not with Washington, but with Indiana, reaching for the pylon with the ball barely touching the pylon. Indiana gets the win in overtime. Penn State loses the game. Everybody thinks that he was short. Ask Tom Allen for the truth on that deal. I like that tweet, even though I'm an Indiana grad. Here's one from Kyle McCord's account, all decked up in the Syracuse orange, committed. That's how he announced he was going to Syracuse. And here's one from at Heavens FX. Took 10 seconds for Caitlin Clark to get her first 3. This is in the game against Cleveland State. Scored 38 in that game and is now the 9th all-time leading scorer in women's basketball. So congratulations to her. The stats just keep on rolling for her. She is absolutely fantastic. All right. This was fantastic. Time flew here today. A lot of fun, a lot of big news, recruits, portal, bowl games. We've got it all right here on Locked On Big Ten. In the meantime, hit me up on Twitter at TalkBig10 or X, whatever you want to call it, and our website, TalkBig10 10.com, and on YouTube as well. And if you haven't yet, subscribe. That would be great if you did that. Thank you very much. It's free. Follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app, and you get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. And also, don't forget, Locked On Sports Today, our 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube in addition to this one. That'll do it. Have yourself a great day. Thanks so much for checking us out. Can't wait to meet with you next time. I'm Craig Sheeman for Locked On Big Ten.